always knew this moment would come. The moment when Daniel would walk through that front door. Expecting everything to be the same. Expecting his life, our marriage, this home, his home, to remain untouched by the changes I had embraced. He was always so predictable, so painfully naive. I sat on the couch, one leg crossed over the other, swirling my wine glass absent-mindedly as I listened to the sound of his car pulling into the driveway. It was raining, a soft drizzle tapping against the windows, the kind of weather that made everything feel heavier, more dramatic. How fitting. I glanced at Liam, my Liam lounging in Daniel's favorite chair. He looked up at me with a smirk, his dark eyes glinting with amusement. His feet, clad in expensive leather boots, rested on the coffee table Daniel had built with his own hands. I should have thrown that ugly thing out weeks ago, but I had let it stay for this moment. A relic of the past just so I could watch it shatter. The sound of keys jingling, the door creaking open. Then silence. I imagined Daniel standing there, confused, his gaze scanning the living room. Maybe he noticed the missing pictures, the ones of us as a family, now replaced with new ones of just me and Liam. Maybe his eyes darted to the staircase, looking for signs of our son Theo, expecting to hear his little feet racing toward him. But there was only silence. Then his voice, low, uncertain. "Where are Theo's things?" I turned my head slightly, just enough to catch a glimpse of him standing there, dripping wet from the rain, Theo's tiny fingers gripping his jacket sleeve. My son's face was buried against his father's side, his little shoulders trembling. Liam chuckled, leaning back into the chair with the kind of arrogance that made my stomach flutter. "I took the room," he said smoothly. "Sold everything. Got a good price, too." I let out a soft laugh, raising my wine glass. "I'm carrying his child," I added, my voice sickly sweet. "It's only fair, right?" Daniel's face didn't change. He didn't yell, didn't curse. He didn't even look at me. His eyes were locked on Theo, his grip tightening around the little boy's hand. For the first time, a flicker of something I didn't expect twisted in my chest. Guilt? No, it wasn't guilt. It was irritation. Disappointment. This wasn't how I had imagined it. I had pictured outrage, a storm of fury, maybe even a desperate plea. I had rehearsed my responses, my cutting remarks, my unwavering justifications. But he gave me nothing. Daniel turned away. No last words. No begging. Just nothing. He stepped back into the rain, guiding Theo toward the car, his movements steady. Theo clung to him, sobbing, his little fingers bunching up Daniel's coat as if he could disappear inside of it. And then they were gone. Liam sighed dramatically. "Well, that was underwhelming." I forced a laugh. "I thought it'd be more fun, too." I swallowed the rest of my wine in one gulp, ignoring the way my throat burned. It didn't matter. This was how it was supposed to be. This was my fresh start. My new life. My real happiness. And yet, as I turned to look out the window, watching the headlights of Daniel's car fade into the storm, a chill crept up my spine. Because for the first time since all of this began, I wondered if I had made a mistake, that I should have felt triumphant. I had envisioned this moment for weeks. Daniel standing there, stunned, helpless, defeated. I thought I'd feel power surging through me. A sense of satisfaction in watching him walk away with nothing but the clothes on his back and our son clinging to him like a lifeline. But as the night stretched on, that victory felt hollow. Liam had gone out to meet some friends, leaving me alone in the house that no longer felt like mine. The furniture was the same. The walls still painted in the soft blue Daniel and I had chosen together when we bought this place, but everything felt different now. Colder. I wandered upstairs, my fingers trailing along the wooden banister. The hallway was eerily quiet without Theo's usual chatter filling the space. My steps slowed as I approached his old bedroom, Liam's bedroom now. The door was slightly ajar, and through the dim light I could see the bare walls, the empty floor where his toy chest used to be. Gone. Everything was gone. I had told myself that it was just stuff, that Theo wouldn't even remember half of it. He was young, he'd just forget, move on. And yet, I could still hear his wailing sobs as he buried his face into Daniel's chest, clutching him like he was the only thing keeping him safe. Why did that bother me? I pushed the thought away and stepped inside. The room smelled different. Liam's cologne lingered in the air, musky and sharp, replacing the familiar scent of baby lotion and the faint, sweet remnants of Theo's nighttime shampoo. I ran my fingers over the empty dresser, my nails tapping against the polished wood. My stomach twisted, though I wasn't sure why. Maybe because for the first time I was alone with my choices. I had one. Hadn't I? A sudden vibration against the wood made me jump. My phone. I grabbed it, my heart pounding for reasons I couldn't explain. A message from Daniel. You didn't have to do that. That was it. No anger, no accusations, just those 6 words. I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I did what I had to. That was what I wanted to say. You'll move on. That was what I should have said. But instead I locked my phone and tossed it onto the bed, my breath unsteady. I wasn't going to let Daniel get in my head. I had made my choice and there was no going back. He was in the past. I had Liam now. Had his child growing inside of me. That was all that mattered. And yet, as I curled up beneath the expensive silk sheets, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling deep in my gut. Something was coming. Something I hadn't planned for. And for the first time I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. The next morning I woke up to an empty bed. Liam was gone. For a moment my mind tricked me into thinking it was Daniel who had just slipped out early for work, the way he used to. I almost expected to hear the sounds of Theo chattering in the hallway, dragging his stuffed bunny behind him as he came to climb into bed with me. But the house was silent. Reality came crashing down as I sat up, rubbing my temples. The sheets beside me were cold. A faint scent of Liam's cologne lingered in the air. But there was no note, no message. Just absence. I reached for my phone. No texts. Annoyance prickled under my skin. Liam was supposed to be here. This was our home now. He had made it very clear that Daniel was nothing but dead weight, that he was giving me a new future, a real future. So where the hell was he? I forced myself out of bed, heading downstairs. The kitchen was exactly as I left it last night. Wine glass still on the counter, a few dishes in the sink. But there was something else. A yellow envelope sat on the dining table. My pulse quickened as I walked over and picked it up. My name was scrawled across the front in Daniel's familiar handwriting. I hesitated. I should have thrown it in the trash without a second thought. I should have laughed and called Liam, telling him my ex was still desperately clinging to a fantasy that didn't exist anymore. But instead I opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper. Theo's school is paid through the end of the year. After that, you're on your own. He will stay with me. We both know you don't want to be a mother anymore. My throat tightened. Of course Daniel would turn this into a moral high ground. He always acted like he was the perfect father, the devoted husband, the martyr who had given me everything while I played the villain. But he wasn't wrong. I had chosen Liam. I had chosen to start over. And if I was honest, a part of me had felt relief when Daniel took Theo's hand and walked away. Because I knew that Daniel would be the one to pick up the pieces. That he would be the one to deal with the late-night fevers, the school meetings, the tantrums, the responsibility. I had spent so long trying to convince myself that I wanted the picture-perfect life, that I wanted to be the devoted wife and mother. But the truth was I had always been suffocating. And now? Now I was finally free. So why did I feel like I had lost something? A knock at the door startled me. I turned quickly, my heartbeat still unsteady from the letter. Liam? I rushed to open it, expecting his smug grin, his easy arrogance, his casual "miss me, babe." But it wasn't Liam. It was Daniel. Standing in the rain, his dark eyes unreadable. I gripped the doorknob tighter. What do you want? He looked past me, scanning the house that used to be his. I saw the slight twitch of his jaw, the barely restrained emotion behind his cold stare. Then his gaze settled back on me. You really sold all of Theo's things? His voice was calm, but there was something else beneath it. Something dark. I crossed my arms. You took him. You have everything you need. Daniel exhaled slowly, then nodded as if he had expected that answer. Right. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out another envelope, handing it to me. I scoffed. Another letter? What is this, your version of a dramatic exit? Daniel didn't smile. It's divorce papers. I blinked. I don't know why it shocked me. This was inevitable. This was my choice. So why did my fingers shake when I took them? Daniel turned, walking back down the steps, heading toward his car without another word. For the second time I watched him walk away. And for the second time I couldn't shake the feeling that I had made a mistake. I closed the door too hard, the sound echoing through the empty house. My fingers gripped the envelope so tightly that the edges crumpled, but I didn't open it. Not yet. My chest felt tight, my pulse uneven. I had expected Daniel to fight, to plead, to show some emotion. Instead, he handed me the papers like it was just another errand on his list, like I wasn't even worth a final argument. That should have felt like a victory. It didn't. I tossed the envelope onto the counter and grabbed my phone, dialing Liam's number. Straight to voicemail. Again. My jaw clenched. Where the hell was he? He had made all these promises, told me that he was giving me a better life, a real future. And yet, the moment things got real, he was gone. I tried to ignore the creeping unease that crawled up my spine. I busied myself cleaning the kitchen, trying to shake the feeling that something was slipping out of my grasp. The house was too quiet. I had always thought I hated the noise, the constant presence of Theo, the demands, the responsibilities. But now that it was gone, the silence gnawed at me. I turned on the TV just to fill the space, but my thoughts kept drifting back to Daniel, to the way he had looked at me. Not with anger. Not with heartbreak. Just indifference. My phone buzzed and I grabbed it quickly, relief washing over me when I saw Liam's name. Finally, I answered, trying to keep the irritation out of my voice. Where the hell have you been? His voice was lazy, amused. Relax, babe. I had some things to take care of. Like what? A pause. Then, you don't need to worry about it. I gritted my teeth. You disappeared all night, Liam. You didn't even tell me you were leaving. Another pause, longer this time. Then a chuckle. What, you miss me already? I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. But I didn't. Instead, I took a deep breath, swallowing my frustration. Daniel came by. That got his attention. What did he want? He gave me divorce papers. Silence. Then another chuckle. Good. Now we don't have to deal with that dead weight anymore. I don't know why, but the way he said it made my stomach turn. I should have been relieved. This was exactly what I wanted, wasn't it? But something about the way he dismissed it so easily, like Daniel had never mattered at all, made me feel disposable. I forced a laugh, trying to shake the unease. Yeah. I guess you're right. You guess. His voice sharpened just slightly. You're not having second thoughts, are you? No, I answered too quickly. Of course not. Another pause. Then his voice softened, but there was an edge to it. Good. Because I gave up a lot for you, babe. We both made our choices. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I know. Then act like it. The call ended before I could say anything else. I stared at my phone, a chill settling in my bones. Something felt different. Off. But I didn't know why. I turned back to the counter, my eyes landing on the crumpled divorce papers. Without thinking, I picked them up and unfolded them, my eyes scanning the text. That's when I saw it. At the bottom, right above Daniel's signature, there was a note. Not typed. Handwritten. You're going to regret this. I stared at the words, my heart pounding. For the first time since this all began, I felt something new. Fear. That I stared at Daniel's note, the words pressing into my mind like a slow, twisting knife. You're going to regret this. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't anger. It was something worse, certainty. I swallowed, forcing a laugh at how ridiculous I was being. Daniel wasn't the type to do anything drastic. He had never been that man. He was predictable, steady, boring. Even when I pushed him, he never snapped. He just walked away. That's what he did. That's what he always did. So why did I feel like the walls around me were starting to crack? I shook the feeling off and grabbed my purse. I needed to get out of the house, away from my own thoughts. Maybe go shopping, maybe grab lunch somewhere nice. Anywhere that didn't feel like a tomb of bad decisions. When I stepped outside, the first thing I noticed was the silence. No car in the driveway. No sign of Liam. And then I saw it. A foreclosure notice. It was taped right to the front door. Bold red letters burning into my vision. Property in default. Final notice. My breath hitched as I ripped it down, my fingers trembling as I skimmed the paper. This had to be a mistake. It had to be. The mortgage was supposed to be taken care of. Liam promised he was handling it. We talked about it. We planned for this. I fumbled for my phone, my heart slamming against my ribs as I dialed Liam's number. Voicemail. Again. I tried a second time. Nothing. A sick, sinking feeling settled in my stomach. Liam was always smooth with his words, always had an answer for everything. He was supposed to be the one who made things easier, the one who gave me something better than the dull, suffocating life I had with Daniel. But where the hell was he now? I stormed back inside, dialing again, this time with shaking fingers. My mind raced. The car in Liam's name, the credit cards, the way he was always vague about taking care of things. Had I just been another thing for him to take from? The thought made my stomach turn. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the call connected. What? Liam's voice was groggy, irritated, like I had just woken him up. Where are you? I snapped, my breath coming out too fast. A pause. Then a slow, lazy chuckle. Miss me that much already? Cut the crap, Liam, I hissed. Why is there a foreclosure notice on my house? Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then he sighed. Babe, you need to calm down. Calm down. My voice was rising now, but I didn't care. Liam, the house is being taken from us. What the hell is going on? He exhaled, and I could practically hear his smirk. It's not our house, remember? It was Daniel's. You never put your name on anything, babe. I froze. Something cold rushed through me, something sharp and suffocating. Wait, I whispered. You said you took care of it. I did take care of it, he said smoothly. I took care of us. You wanted out, didn't you? You wanted something better? Well, guess what? You don't need a house for that. The words hit me like a slap. Liam wasn't planning a future with me. Liam was using me. You? I choked out, my throat tightening. But Liam just laughed. Look, I gotta go. We'll talk later. And then the line went dead. I stood there, gripping my phone so tightly I thought it would break. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. I left Daniel because I wanted more, because I wanted freedom. But now? Now I had nothing. And the worst part? Daniel knew. He had known all along. I stood in the middle of the kitchen, my breathing ragged, my fingers still clutching my phone like it could somehow undo what had just happened. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But the foreclosure notice in my trembling hand said otherwise. Liam had played me. He had fed me every single lie I wanted to hear, promised me a new life, and now when everything was falling apart, he was nowhere to be found. My legs felt weak as I stumbled toward the counter, gripping it for support. I needed to think. I needed a plan. There had to be a way to fix this. I dialed Liam again. Voicemail. Again. I tried texting, but every message sent delivered that same sinking feeling in my chest. He wasn't going to answer. He wasn't coming back. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. How had I let this happen? How had I been so blind? Daniel had warned me, hadn't he? He didn't have to say it outright, but I could see it in his eyes. That silent judgment. That unwavering knowledge that this would all come crashing down. And now it had. I could almost hear his voice in my head. You're going to regret this. I clenched my jaw, pushing away the panic threatening to consume me. I wasn't going to let this break me. I refused. I had walked away from Daniel. I had walked away from Theo. I had made my choice and I wasn't about to crawl back begging for help. There had to be something I could do. I grabbed my laptop and started searching, my fingers shaking as I typed. Legal options. Extensions. Anything that could buy me time. But the truth was glaringly obvious. I had nothing. No assets in my name. No savings. Everything had been tied to Liam, and Liam had disappeared. A sudden sharp knock on the door made me jump. My pulse skyrocketed. I wasn't expecting anyone. For a brief stupid moment I thought maybe Liam had come back. But deep down I knew better. I hesitated, then forced my feet to move, peeling back the curtain just enough to see outside. My stomach dropped. It wasn't Liam. It was Daniel. My grip tightened on the fabric, my nails digging into my palm. He stood there, hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable, but I knew why he was here. He knew. Of course he knew. Daniel had always been the type to stay one step ahead, even when I convinced myself he was the fool in all of this. And now? Now he had come to see the fallout for himself. I turned away from the window, pressing my back against the wall, my breath shallow. Maybe if I didn't answer, he'd leave. Maybe he'd take whatever satisfaction he needed from standing out there, knowing he was right. The knock came again, louder this time. "I know you're in there." Daniel's voice carried through the door, calm, measured. I squeezed my eyes shut. I couldn't face him. "Not now. Not like this. You don't have to open the door," he continued. "But you and I both know this isn't over." My throat tightened. I stayed silent. "I just thought you should know," he said after a pause. "Theo's doing fine. He asks about you." Another pause, deliberate, like he wanted to let that sting. "I don't know what you told yourself to make leaving him easier, but just so we're clear, he hasn't stopped waiting for you to come back." Something in my chest caved in. I gritted my teeth, willing myself not to let his words get to me. "But I told him the truth," Daniel said, and this time there was an edge to his voice. "I told him you chose something else. Someone else. And that you're not coming back." A choke sound escaped me before I could stop it. There was silence on the other side of the door. Then soft footsteps as he turned to leave. And just like that, he was gone. I slid to the floor, my hands shaking, my whole body cold. For the first time since this all began, I didn't know what to do. For the first time I was truly alone. I don't know how long I sat there on the floor, staring at nothing, my mind looping Daniel's words over and over. "Theo asks about you." I could picture him, his small hands gripping Daniel's coat, those big teary eyes searching the door, waiting for me to walk through. But I wasn't going to. I had made my choice, hadn't I? Then why did it feel like my chest was being crushed under the weight of it? My phone buzzed, snapping me back. I scrambled to grab it, hope flaring in my chest that maybe, just maybe, it was Liam finally answering. But it wasn't Liam. It was my bank. A notification. I clicked on it so fast my fingers fumbled. Insufficient funds. The words made my stomach drop. I checked my balance, praying I was wrong. I wasn't. Every last dollar was gone. Panic clawed its way up my throat. I scrolled through my transactions, my vision blurring as I saw Liam's name attached to withdrawal after withdrawal. Hotel stays. Expensive dinners. Cash transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. He had drained everything. He hadn't just left me, he had robbed me. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. I tried to call him again, but I already knew. He's not coming back. He never was. He got what he wanted and now he was gone, leaving me with nothing but an empty house I was about to lose. I staggered to my feet, my body moving on autopilot. I needed money. Now. I grabbed my purse, rushing out the door, barely locking it behind me. My car was still in the driveway, at least Liam hadn't taken that. I drove fast, my fingers white-knuckling the steering wheel, my mind spinning through every possible way out of this. I could go to my parents, but they had cut me off when I left Daniel. I could try to get a loan, but my credit was already a mess. The only person who could help me was the last person I wanted to see. But I had no choice. Daniel. I hated that I was even considering it, but I had nowhere else to go. My pride screamed at me to turn the car around, to figure it out on my own. But reality had already torn that option away from me. I pulled into his driveway, my heart slamming against my ribs. The house looked the same, but it felt different now. I used to live here. Now I was just another stranger knocking on his door. The seconds dragged as I waited, my pulse pounding in my ears. Then the door opened and there he was. Daniel. He looked at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "I need help." My voice cracked. I hated how weak I sounded, how desperate. His eyes flickered with something, pity? Amusement? I couldn't tell. Then he leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms. "Help," he repeated, as if the word itself was foreign. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to snap. I hesitated, my voice faltering. How was I supposed to say it? "You were right. I ruined everything. The man I left you for took everything from me, and now I have nothing." The words sat on my tongue like poison. But Daniel wasn't stupid. He already knew. A slow, humorless smile spread across his face, and when he finally spoke, his voice was calm. Too calm. "You want me to clean up your mess?" I swallowed, forcing myself to meet his gaze. "I just need some time. Some help getting back on my feet." A bitter laugh escaped him, and the sound of it cut deeper than I expected. "That's funny," he said. "Because when I needed time, When I begged you to think before throwing everything away, you didn't give a damn. His words were sharp, deliberate, each one hitting like a blade. Shame burned in my chest, but I pushed it down. Daniel, please. His expression didn't change. He studied me, his silence stretching into something unbearable. Then finally he spoke. Where's Liam? The name hit me like a slap. My breath hitched. He knew. Of course he knew. Gone, I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. Something flickered in Daniel's eyes, but it wasn't sympathy. It was something colder. Satisfaction. So that's it then, he said. You threw your family away for a man who left you with nothing. And now you expect me to pick up the pieces. The words twisted inside me, making my throat tighten. I started, but I had nothing to say. Nothing to defend myself with. He stepped back, his grip tightening on the door. You made your choice, Claire. The way he said my name sent a shiver down my spine. And now you get to live with it. And with that he shut the door in my face. I stood there frozen, staring at the door that had just been slammed in my face. The cold night air bit at my skin, but the chill inside me was worse. He had really done it. He had really shut me out. Daniel, the man who once would have done anything for me, who spent years bending over backward to make me happy, had looked me in the eye and turned me away without a second thought. My throat burned, my nails digging into my palms. I wanted to scream, to kick the door, to demand that he listen, but deep down I knew I had no right to. I took a shaky breath, forcing my hands to stop trembling. This wasn't over. He was angry. Of course he was. But Daniel wasn't cruel. He wouldn't leave me out here like this. Not when he knew what I was going through. Not when he knew I had nothing. He just needed time to let it sink in. That was all. I lifted my hand and knocked again, softer this time, my voice calmer. Daniel. Please. Silence. I swallowed, pressing my forehead against the door. I know I don't deserve your help. I know I hurt you. I don't have anywhere else to go. More silence. My breath hitched. Theo wouldn't want this. I played the only card I had left, the one I swore I wouldn't use. You said he asks about me. I closed my eyes, waiting for the lock to click, for him to sigh and tell me to come inside, even if it was just for one night. But nothing happened. The lights inside flickered off one by one. A lump formed in my throat. He wasn't just ignoring me. He was done. Completely, utterly done. I backed away from the door, my vision blurring, my heart hammering against my ribs. The weight of everything crashed down all at once, pressing into my chest so hard I could barely breathe. The house I lost. The money Liam stole. The life I had thrown away for a man who had walked out on me without a second glance. And now the only person left who might have helped me had shut the door in my face. I stumbled back to my car, gripping the handle so tightly my knuckles turned white. I had nowhere to go. No money. No options. I slid into the driver's seat, staring blankly ahead, my fingers hovering over my phone. I could call Liam again, but I already knew he wasn't going to answer. I could try my parents, but I could hear their voices now, dripping with disappointment. You made this bed, Claire. Now lie in it. A sob built in my chest, but I swallowed it down. I had done this to myself. There was no one left to blame. I started the car, my hands gripping the wheel, my mind spinning through what little I had left. A cheap motel, maybe. Something small. Something I could stretch for a few days while I figured things out. But deep down I knew there was nothing left to figure out. I had lost. And Daniel had won. The motel room smelled like cigarette smoke and desperation. The flickering neon sign outside my window cast an ugly red glow against the peeling wallpaper, making everything feel even more suffocating. I sat on the edge of the stained mattress, my fingers twisting in my lap, my thoughts looping over and over. I had spent my last bit of cash on the room, just enough for 2 nights. After that I had nothing. No home. No money. No Liam. No Daniel. No Theo. I dug my nails into my palms, trying to keep the panic at bay. I had spent so much time believing I was better than this, that I deserved more. That's what Liam had whispered in my ear every night. That I was wasting my life with Daniel. That I deserved excitement, adventure, something more. And I had believed him. I had destroyed my life for him. And now? He was gone, and I was left with nothing but the consequences. I grabbed my phone, my hands trembling as I scrolled through my contacts. I had never been the type to beg, but now I was seconds away from breaking. I hovered over my mother's number, my chest tightening. She would answer. She always did. But I already knew what she'd say. You made your choice, Claire. You had a good man, a beautiful son, and you threw it away for what? Some fantasy? I locked my phone and tossed it onto the bed, bile rising in my throat. I had no way out. No escape. No one left to turn to. The weight of it crushed me. I curled my arms around my stomach, squeezing my eyes shut, trying to block out the reality I had built for myself. I thought about Theo, about the way he had clung to Daniel that night, the way his little body had trembled as he cried into his father's coat. I thought about how I hadn't even fought for him, hadn't even wanted to. And now I would have given anything to see his face. But it was too late. I wasn't his mother anymore. Not really. I was just the woman who left. The knock on my door made me jump. My heart pounded as I sat up, my body tense. No one knew I was here. No one should know I was here. I hesitated, my pulse hammering in my ears. Another knock. Louder this time. My breath came out in short, uneven bursts as I slowly stood, my legs unsteady. I reached for the doorknob, pausing for just a second before pulling it open. Daniel. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. I could only stare. He looked at me, his face unreadable, his dark eyes scanning the miserable state I was in. The motel room. The hollow look in my eyes. The exhaustion that had settled deep in my bones. And then, without a word, he stepped inside and closed the door behind him. I swallowed hard, my throat dry, my voice barely above a whisper. What are you doing here? He didn't answer right away. He just looked at me, his gaze slow and deliberate, like he was taking in every broken piece of me. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, even. I wanted to see it for myself. I frowned. See what? He tilted his head slightly, and for the first time, I saw something in his expression that made my stomach twist. Satisfaction. See what rock bottom looks like. His words cut through me like a blade, sharp and final. And in that moment I knew. He wasn't here to save me. He was here to watch me drown. I stood frozen. The weight of Daniel's words settling over me like a death sentence. See what rock bottom looks like. He wasn't here to help me. He wasn't here to offer a hand. He was here to witness what I had done to myself. My mouth felt dry, my pulse hammering against my ribs, but I forced myself to speak. You came all this way just to gloat? My voice was weak, but I tried to make it sound sharp. His expression didn't change. He didn't look angry. He didn't look smug. He just looked done. And somehow that hurt more than anything else. No, he said simply, his voice steady. I came to give you something. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, holding it out to me. I hesitated before snatching it from his hand, my fingers trembling as I opened it. It was a check. $10,000. My breath caught, confusion crashing into me. I looked up at him, my stomach twisting. What is this? Daniel's gaze was unwavering. It's what you wanted, isn't it? A way out. My chest tightened, my pride warring with the desperation clawing inside me. I wanted to rip it up, to throw it back in his face, to scream at him for treating me like some charity case. But the truth was I needed it. I needed it more than I had ever needed anything in my life. My hands curled around the paper, my fingers gripping it so tightly the edges crumpled. Why? My voice was barely a whisper. Why are you doing this? For the first time, Daniel's expression shifted, something almost resembling pity flickering in his eyes. Because this is the last thing I'll ever give you, Claire. His voice was quiet, controlled, but there was something final in the way he said it. Take it. Use it however you want. Start over. Disappear. I don't care. He took a step back toward the door, his movements slow, deliberate. But don't ever come back. Don't call me. Don't ask about Theo. Don't pretend you have a place in our lives anymore. The air was sucked out of the room. My fingers tightened around the check, my vision blurring. Daniel. My voice cracked. He shook his head, cutting me off. No, his gaze locked onto mine, cold and unwavering. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. He turned toward the door, gripping the handle, pausing just long enough to say one last thing. This is what you wanted, Claire. A life without me. So go live it. And then he was gone. I stared at the closed door, my whole body trembling, my breath coming in sharp, uneven bursts. I looked down at the check in my hands, my vision swimming, and for the first time since this all began, I realized the truth. I had gotten exactly what I deserved, and now I would have to live with it. The end.